I'm gonna have to issue a trigger warning before we get started with this video because it is by far the most inflammatory video I will have ever released. Today, I am likely going to be joining the ranks of Zen Lee, and not in a good way. I'm likely going to be blacklisted by InMotion for saying what I'm about to say in this video. This video is going to be unearthing some of the very harsh realities about the things that are going on right now at InMotion. And this is not with the intent of making them look bad either. I want them to do well. So let's be clear from the start that this is not an inflammatory video just to make it seem like I'm trying to get attention or to make anybody look bad. No, InMotion has already done that very well all by themselves. After we discuss everything that's gone wrong, then we're going to be discussing what they can do to make things right again. Let's get started talking about it. This is Wheel Good Time. What I'm about to say may very well get me blacklisted from InMotion forever. And I hope that's not the case because I ultimately want them to succeed. But we have a major problem on their hands. And if something doesn't change, if something doesn't get said, that company may very well be gone forever soon. The V12 did okay commercially, but it was plagued with issues like cutouts, and of course it didn't have a suspension. That doesn't really look good for InMotion when they released their V11, their previous model, and it had suspension. Much later, InMotion comes out with the V13. And the V13, although it's a really powerful EUC, it was regarded by the public as a bit of a solution in search of a problem. Don't get me wrong, the V13 is a really fast, really powerful electric unicycle. The problem with the V13 is that it just didn't have the battery capacity that the competitors had. The Master Pro had about 50% more battery capacity than the V13, and so you have this monstrous wheel that isn't able to get the range that people want. Hey! Where were we now? Ah yes, the V13. The V13 was supposed to save the company, but unfortunately, they were not able to get the full asking price that they wanted out of this wheel. They wanted $4,600 for it for batch 2 and onward, which they never really received. Long story short, the V13 was not a success, and therefore InMotion really hasn't come out with a successful EUC since the V11. When I had an interview with Bob Yan, the previous CEO of InMotion, he said that the reason why he departed from the company was because of there being philosophical differences between him and the rest of the leadership at InMotion. And honestly, I do believe him on that front. However, I've been told from other insider sources that that isn't the only thing that was the reason why he left. The other part is apparently because InMotion is run by shareholders and stakeholders, he doesn't have complete control over the company. So what I was told is that Bob Yan was essentially forced out because he wasn't getting the shareholders the monstrous profits that they were expecting. So now after an unsuccessful V12 and V13, now the V14 is supposed to save the company. Can that happen? Well, it's not looking good. For starters, one of the very first V14s that was ever released was sent to Marty Backey, who very quickly found out that the range on it is not very good. And then after that, his V14 broke. Ultimately, they found out what the cause was for this issue, but the damage had already been done. A cascade of pre-orders was getting canceled for the V14 left and right. This means that there are a ton of batch 1 V14s that are still sitting unsold on warehouse shelves. This is an absolute disaster if you cannot sell out on the very first batch of InMotion V14s. Believe me when I say this, that they did make a lot of corrections to make the V14 better, and that's already being sent preloaded on batch 2. But unfortunately, again, the damage has already been done. Now InMotion has released a new firmware for the V14, and it has made this wheel completely unjumpable. There are a lot of upset customers who've reported that their V14 is unable to safely jump at all. Basically what happens is that the wheel dips way far forward when you jump, and then it basically throws you off if you're not able to save yourself. This is a monstrous firmware bug. Tons of people have reported it, and this is the response we've gotten from InMotion. This is a very common thing with Chinese companies, and specifically with EUC manufacturers, where they don't like to be embarrassed publicly, they don't like to be shown their faults, and so instead of communicating, hey, we messed up, we made a mistake, there's just silence on the line and hope that it will be ignored. People will not say anything. Unfortunately, this is a safety issue. This is absolutely massive for safety. I already personally know someone who's gotten their thumb broken from this exact issue. He went over a jump and he was thrown way far forward. He was thrown off the wheel, busted his thumb. Thank you, InMotion. To be clear, InMotion, all we want you to do is communicate and say, do not use this firmware. What we want is for you to say, roll back to the previous firmware until we have the issues ironed out. That's all we need, but instead all we've gotten is silence. We want some leadership on this issue. We want you to say, don't do this because our customers can end up getting hurt. As a result of this inaction, there's a lot of people that I personally know who have V14s who have said they're never going to buy another InMotion EUC ever again because they no longer trust the company. They no longer trust the leadership of InMotion. To add further commentary to this catastrophe, a few weeks back, there was a document that was leaked to the public that showed the list of all the 2024 releases for InMotion. This is for e-scooters and EUCs. Basically what we're looking at for 2024 is a total top to bottom refresh of their entire line. And what did we get at the very beginning of it was the V13 Pro and the V12 Pro. And let's be honest, those are insulting EUCs. The V13 Pro and the V12 Pro are essentially the same exact EUC as the V13 and V12, but there's just a little bit more black and a little bit less orange on these wheels. To put it bluntly, it seems like nobody wants these wheels. It seems like they're likely going to be canceling the V12 Pro and the V13 Pro before they're even shipped out to consumers. Many of these things have happened since Bob Yan departed as CEO from InMotion in July or so of 2023. And who's the guy in charge right now? I have no idea what his name is. I don't know what he looks like. I don't even know if he rides an EUC or e-scooter. What we do know is that he came from the cell phone industry and he has tanked the business. Current employees at InMotion are saying how this guy is, quote, an idiot. Yes, they have said that publicly, and they hate going to work, and he is a slave driver. Contrast this with Bob Yan, who actively sought out the feedback from the EUC community. He cast a vision for us. Even though some things didn't exactly pan out the way we wanted it to, such as the 20-inch Challenger series with a fork-style suspension, or a 14-inch Adventure series, at least he cast us a vision and said, this is what we're trying to do, this is what we're working on, this is what we'd like to do. With the new guy though, silence on the line, and that bothers me. The fact that we have absolutely no idea what they're doing with the company, we don't know who this guy is, all we know is that there is virtually zero demand for InMotion wheels right now, and that's a problem. Let me be clear about one thing. I don't want any of these bad things to be happening. I'm not dancing on anybody's grave. I am truly bummed that all of this is happening. But I'm saying this because it's tough love and sometimes hard things need to be said. InMotion needs a total change in leadership. What we need is someone who is actually connected to the EUC industry. We need someone who actually cares about their customers. We need InMotion's leadership to introduce themselves and connect with people like me and people that actually ride. We need leadership at InMotion that is actually connected to the EUC industry and actually rides and loves it. I just don't see the passion and I don't see the connection to the EUC community the way that the other brands do it. It's just not there with InMotion right now. The only way out of this conundrum is a leadership change. And someone, it doesn't have to be Bob Yan, but he is the first person that comes to mind because I know that he actually cares about this sort of thing. And now a message for the stakeholders who run InMotion. It's time to get rid of your cell phone salesman of a CEO. Your employees do not want him around. The demand for your products is through the floor. The V14 launch has been a flop and your communication has been atrocious. To right this ship, there needs to be a major change, and that needs to start at the leadership level. I believe they did the wrong thing by getting rid of Bob Yan, but instead what they should have done is listen to him and actually submit to his leadership rather than oust him. I reached out to Bob to see if he would be interested in going back to InMotion and taking the reins as CEO again, and this was his response. Yes. He said he would be very interested, and he also reiterated his love for the company and his love for the other employees. Will the leadership bite off on this? Will they eat a slice of humble pie to bring back Bob? I don't know about that, and I'm not holding my breath, but I truly hope they do, just to save the company. If you think InMotion needs to buy out PidZoom with a generous offer and bring Bob Yan back as the CEO of InMotion, then hit that like button on the video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Also, if you're in the market for a new EUC, make sure you check out the video description where there's loads of discount codes and affiliate links. That's all for today. Thanks for joining me, and bring back Bob.